All right, we are
All
live,
right, looks
sir.
like
All right.
we're going.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Crypto Power Hour. Appreciate you tuning in to our weekly show that we do here on Thursdays. And I just want to kind of start off with letting everybody know you could give us some love in the comments. If anybody wants to drop any questions during this time, or if you have anything that you're dying to know that Alex can hopefully answer here, that would be great. But kind of get the ball rolling here. I kind of want to introduce Alex. So, Alex, take it away. Kind of introduce yourself and let everybody know what you're about.
All right. Well, thank you, Jacob. Yeah, I definitely recommend dropping your questions into the comments and anything you might be dying to know around energy and the Inflation Reduction Act bill. If there's things outside of that, I can't promise that my advice is going to be any good at all. So a little bit about myself. I'm Alex Langmesser. I'm the part owner and co-founder of a boutique energy development company here in Chicago. Our offices are here in River North. What we do on the daily is we help investors and different leaders of operations and nonprofits and different municipalities and governments be able to make informed decisions and actually do something about the energy transition that we're going through. I think part of the reason that we've linked up is because a lot of the improvement and a lot of the legislation around energy is all around tax credits. And so we have been seeing really quite the headwinds for this industry, and especially with the Inflation Reduction Act bill, have been really excited about the amount of opportunities that are going to be created next year for investors and opportunities to really put money that they were going to put in Uncle Sam's kind of government cash blender and actually be able to put that money into assets that are doing something that our nation and our world desperately needs.
All right, that is fantastic, Alex. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act. Let's kind of get right into it.
All right.
Can we get a quick explanation of the Inflation Reduction Act and maybe why some climate efforts are kind of a part of the bill?
Yeah. So the first thing that I'll say about the Inflation Reduction Act is that it is the Inflation Reduction Act really in title only. From my point of view, really what this bill is about is helping to ensure subsidies with healthcare, doing some reforms on some of the different tax incentives that are tax escapements that people used to have, specifically around stock buybacks. It's about ensuring that the IRS has the amount of money they need and personnel they need for enforcement, for better or for worse. And really, it's there's also the legislation around Medicaid being able to directly negotiate as far as prescription drug prices and stuff. And then it's a climate bill. And really, it's a bill around those. I would say there are ways, or from my point of view, there are ways that in the long term we can help reduce prices, but overall, saying it as the Inflation Reduction Act is tough. It's a tough title to deal with. So, Jacob, trying to dive into climate specifically, something that we find really advantageous and really kind of easy to swallow and deal with within the Inflation Reduction Act and the climate portion of it specifically. Look, when we get online, there is a lot of fervor around energy, especially now that we're in a time where we have an industrial nation who is an oil power at war and invading another country that has ripple effects. And what that does is it puts energy kind of at the top of our minds. One of the most misleading things about the climate portion of the Inflation Reduction Act is that it is a heavily costly package where tons and tons of government money is going into these different clean energy assets. And while there is cash that is going to be going to states for different rebate programs, the vast majority of the climate action is all really centered and hinged around tax credits. Tax credits for solar and renewable energy have been around for a long time. But really, for the way we view it as people who are helping industrial operations and private wealth firms and private family offices invest into these systems, we see that as immensely consequential. The reason why we like tax credits is tax credits themselves, they don't cost anybody anything. Tax credits are just simply investors having now a bunch of motivation and a reason in the spreadsheet to look into renewables as an investment, maybe instead of some ETF or a property or whatever else. On top of that, I guess the only other thing I'll add to that, Jacob, from an overview standpoint, is that not only does it from a climate standpoint, does the Inflation Reduction Act now increase and keep around tax credits around renewable energy sources like solar and wind for the next 10 years. Those were set to expire within really step down to 10, and for residential homes completely expire in the next 2 years. Those credits on solar have been raised to 30% of the system's cost, and those credits will now be available for at least the next 10 years. That's extremely consequential. And the second thing that's extremely consequential and is going to actually allow us to start moving in a way that is geared towards sustainability and creating systems that benefit everybody while also giving us energy security and cheaper power, right? As far as it pertains to like bringing costs down. The other landmark thing is that these tax credits have been expanded to other technologies. Some of the notable ones is standalone energy storage now can get a 30% minimum renewable energy tax credit because battery storage is so pinnacle to us being able to achieve a sustainable future. And for some of the projects that we're developing specifically in the ERCOT section of Texas's grid, that's massive for us. And some of the last things here, as far as the overview, Jacob, goes, is there's turbines now. One thing that a lot of people don't know about is there's a lot of natural gas turbines that can be later retrofitted for hydrogen energy. And these turbines create an immense amount of power in a very short amount of time on site. And so conceivably, we're working on projects right now where we have developed a mix of energy storage, battery turbines, and solar system that can that can fully power a high school. Take that high school off the grid. So in the case that power was to go out, the power would stay back on. And it can be delivered to that school's district for less than whatever they're paying the big brother at the utility company for power now. And that was before this bill passed. And so now we're really, with this bill, if there's more development companies like mine who get this right, what we should see is industrial operations and larger government municipality operations be able to take advantage of multiple technologies to make their own power on site and do it in a way that's less than what it used to be. Oh, and by the way, it has a massive carbon footprint reduction impact too. So anyway, I'll leave it to your next question, Jacob. I've taken up a bunch of time on the overview here.
No, that's totally perfect, because I feel like a lot of people, when they see Inflation Reduction Act, they're like, all right, they're going to reduce inflation, where it's all of this stuff that they're cramming into one. And with all of these things with climate, it's definitely huge. Now, I know you mentioned some tax credits, and I know the audience is definitely very excited about any type of tax credit. But we'll kind of go through one by one. What can you explain what the alternative fuel refueling property tax credit is?
Okay, so the alternative refueling property, or the alternative refueling tax credit, Jacob, is mostly around EV vehicles. So that's like a flat $7,500 as a tax credit to go against the purchasing cost of an electric vehicle. So the reason why it's called alternative fuel is one of the major transitions that we're going to see, and that is already happening right before us, is that the entirety of the transportation market right now gets the energy they need to move stuff on roads from a liquid source that we got to tote around everywhere. Well, that's our traditional fuel, gas, as we understand it. The alternative fuel is now going to be from electricity, and that electricity is going to be made and is made from all kinds of places: nuclear plants, coal plants, natural gas, and even the solar and wind farms that are around now. So honing into this term of alternative fuel is the utility providers, and they're pumped about this. The utility providers are now going to be the fuel companies, right? And that is what that tax credit is helping to speed up the implementation of, is our fuel coming from the grid and us storing it, say, in lithium ion, as opposed to our fuel coming from, right? So it's just straight up, it's a $7,500 tax credit. If you want to buy an electric vehicle, the next $7,500 of taxes that you would pay would actually go towards the cost of your car, right? The money's still going out of your account either way, right? Most people have, or most people should have, an account where they're saving up, for whatever their taxes are going to be, especially if more of your audience are entrepreneurs and business owners, right? They have probably an account where quarterly taxes go out of, right? In this case, instead of that thing going away, right, it goes down into the balance of a Tesla, or if you're me, soon a Rivian.
No, sorry. From what I understand, these tax credits, you have to meet a certain qualification. And I believe the battery has to be made inside of the United States, if I'm correct.
For the car itself?
Yeah.
For the car itself, it's likely, so that's a really good question on that detail. It's likely around the components of the car itself, maybe even more so than the battery. So typically there's component thresholds, right? Now this is like really diving in. Sometimes you can get more tax credits if a certain amount of components are made in like the US, right? And so right now, I believe there's an entire list of cars that are already qualified for this credit because they meet a certain component threshold. So that is one thing that I would recommend, is there are lists out there. Like if you were to Google lists of cars qualified for the tax credit, you'll get the whole list of them.
Yeah, I can also link it in the description. I didn't mean to throw you a curveball there, but
no, it's a good curveball. So the important takeaway here is it's usually around a component threshold. So specifically with renewable energy investments, there's that baseline of a 30% tax credit, right? Well, if we're to source, I think right now it's 50% of our overall components, our steel, our panels, our wiring, whatever else. If we source that from American manufacturers, we get an additional 10% of tax credit into that project. Being that a lot of our projects are around the $1 million mark, that makes a massive difference. Anyways, it's something they use often as a component factor.
Yeah, it'd be to throw you a curveball. But here's another curveball. I don't know if you saw it yesterday, but California is getting ready to either it's kind of in the workshops right now, or they're talking about having a bill passed that doesn't allow the sale of gasoline cars past like 2035 or something. And
wow.
This could, correct me if I'm wrong, this could have different types of tax credits in the future. It could go state by state.
Likely we'll see a state by state rollout.
Sure.
Programs like that, right? So, I mean, think about the last time that we as a country passed an infrastructure bill. It's like 30 years ago, right? And that's usually where they cram all of these things in. So, man, the likelihood of more federal climate legislation is pretty doubtful in my mind. But yeah, I think you'll see that California has, the world's 6th biggest economy, and they have generally a government that's like, hey, we'll try what's on edge. And so I think you'll continually see California from a climate action standpoint be a front-running example of what's going to come down the pike in other areas of the United States.
Yeah, again, didn't mean to throw you a curveball or anything, but it is super interesting, and I thought I'd just tack it on super quickly. Kind of moving along, kind of to the next one, explain a little bit the energy efficient home improvement tax credit.
Okay, so there is, as far as doing something better about energy in someone's house or in someone's building, you can either be producing energy in a way that's clean, like producing the energy you need in a renewable way. That's stuff like solar, wind, hydro, stuff like that. On the other end, which is more common and has been around longer, kind of being implemented longer, are efficiencies. These are ways to help you just reduce the amount of power that you're using overall. Some of the largest carbon footprint impact that someone can make is just making a house or making a building more efficient, first and foremost. And so with the home efficiencies credit, what that is doing is it's dangling out tax credits, giving consumers, specifically homeowners, really low hanging fruit ways and a really good incentive to like either head over to Home Depot or start searching online for any of the different ways that you can save energy in your house. First and foremost, AC. If you AC controls or having AC optimization is huge. Please get your HVAC checked out. There's going to be plenty of different rebates around and tax credits for that. there's also tax credits around smart controls. I believe windows are going to go into that as well. Yeah, for anyone who is about to be doing any kind of home improvement, I would really encourage people to start diving down into the list of that, because anything that can be connected, a lot of times anything that can be connected to efficiency can get grants or tax credits or even like specialty type government backed loans for. Like windows, for example. Windows is an incredibly expensive thing in a house, and no one wants to spend money on a windows or a roof, but windows and a roof do have a direct energy efficiency impact. Yeah, so if I could give any takeaway there, this is a great reminder for people to dive into any of the different tech that helps to create energy efficiency, because a lot of people have seen them as bells and whistles. But these are, again, direct areas where instead of putting your cash in the government money blender, you can put it into things in your home that are going to improve your house's comfort and then effectively lower your energy bills.
No, that's some solid advice. And I think definitely when I post these like kind of everywhere through like social media and everything, I'll put a link to kind of like everything that qualifies and like where you should look for all of these separate things, what exactly you're going to need to be looking for. So if you're doing some sort of Home Depot run this weekend, you can go, oh, wait, tax credits, let me see what's going on here.
AC and HVAC is huge, right? Just your general like climate control in your house. Your windows are massive. Insulation will absolutely have credits. If there's not insulation in your roof, get after it. It's such a cheap and fast turn payback thing, and now there's credits for it.
Right. So kind of to the next tax credit, moving things along here, the residential clean energy tax credit.
Yeah, so the residential clean energy tax credit is now really a catch-all. And so it used to be more based around like a residential solar energy tax credit. But man, there are a bunch of different technologies that are starting to hit the market. Small wind turbines, small hydrokinetic engines, in-home generators, batteries, so on and so forth. I mean, there is just a myriad of different really solid technology that just produces clean energy for cheaper than what you can get it from the grid. And so what the clean energy tax credit does is, instead of having this tax credit really honed into just solar as a residential technology to make clean energy, it's providing a catch-all for all of these different technologies that can be used in all of these different situations, right? And so here's essentially how it works. Sometimes there's variance, but generally these tax credits are offering 30% of a system's cost as a dollar for dollar tax credit. So it's August right now. Let's say I have I don't know if people have these anymore, 5,000-6,000 square foot house, right? Let's say you have a bigger house like that. And you find out that you both have a need for solar and wind. You get a couple wind turbines, you get a little bit of solar, right? And that system costs you $100,000, say. Well, that's your gross cost. Right off, if you buy that system in August next year, if your tax bill was 60 grand, that tax bill now goes to 30 grand because that project that you just invested in garnered those tax credits. And so the simple way to understand it for homeowners is right now you pay energy rent straight up. Like any of us who pay a power bill are just paying a perpetual rent payment to keep our lights on. And in the same logic as to why we work hard to not do that with a house, right? To purchase a home so that payment goes away and we have some kind of equity. The tax credits around energy assets are the same thing. You are purchasing an asset that gives you something you need that you normally pay rent for, right? But the mix between tax credits and then sometimes people get a small loan on it, or I recommend using home equity. Third-party lenders are a damn racket. It makes the economics bad. What it's doing is it's creating an opportunity when you mix those two things to essentially, like you could use your home equity line to get a solar system on your house, and your solar payment will be either the same or less than what your energy payment is now. And then in 8 to 10 years, usually 8 to 9 years, your energy mortgage is gone because your equipment's paid off, and that equipment is going to keep running for the next 30 or 40 years, making you energy.
Again, just some great advice. I probably should have gotten somebody who sells solar panels or some sort of solar panel company to come on this as well. That would have had a great time kind of just living off of this. But definitely, I think that's some great advice. And especially, again, people with crypto, you kept mentioning that it's a power kind of rent that you're paying. People with crypto, especially when they look at banks, definitely want something different. That's why they use all these decentralized platforms. So kind of a comparison, why would you want to continue paying this rent on the energy when you can kind of, generate it for yourself pretty much with these solar powers and everything?
So I'm glad you bring up the word decentralized. What's happening with the world of power is that we are witnessing a decentralization of the power infrastructure as we know. Right now, we are in an incredibly, what you would call like, we have a few nodes, but overall, our power infrastructure is centralized. So what we're moving into now that we have all these credits around these different technologies is creating a grid system in which people will make anywhere from 50 to 100% of their power on site. But the power that's being generated, say at a factory, is going to sometimes overproduce and go to the grid to be able to share into other users via, like in Illinois and I don't know, 35 states in the United States have smart grids that allow the grid to work in a decentralized way and share energy with one another. That's like really, that's the headway that we're going to see. Is we're not going to fully ever always all of us make our own power. Well, at least we may be dead before that, right? But what we are going to see in our lifetime is a decentralization of the power infrastructure as we know it today. And where that specifically relates to your audience, Jacob, is that likely a lot of your audience owns houses, and yes, there are plenty of ways that you can use these incentives to help get rid of some taxes by improving your home. That's all well and good. Where there's other opportunity that a lot of people don't know about, though, is investing in these energy systems as income properties. Is likely people who are invested into crypto, who are taking on gains from that, are wanting to find ways where they can put that tax money somewhere else. If they start with their house, they're likely going to eat that tax liability up really quick and then not really have any idea of where to go. There are companies like mine that also raise funding for energy projects that, say, school systems use. So a school system, for example, does not pay taxes. Therefore, they can't monetize the credits that come along with the system. So people who have tax liability can actually invest via tax equity their dollars into systems that school districts pay rental agreements for, say, 20 to 30 years to rent. In the same way that people are drawn to decentralized finance because it allows the individual, i.e. not an institution, to be able to go gather information and make independent decisions and create success and wealth for themselves. This now is an opportunity where, look, 100 years ago when we went through a major energy transition, we transitioned from coal to oil. There's a very select group of people who got to participate and profit off of it. And we know them now as the oil barons. We know them now as like this monolith that has a massive amount of impact, sway, and say over what happens in our society, economy, and culture. Well, now our energy systems are moving into a decentralized fashion, which means that from a high view, we as people now have a much lower bar. We have a much more open door for people of many different economic classes, of many different economic abilities, to be able to look into a decentralized platform, invest in it, right, and be able to participate and profit in this energy transition. And to me, that when we're talking about things being decentralized and we're talking about the energy transition that is happening, is not political, it is happening. And all you really need to know what's happening is where investment banks are putting their money in the energy sector. And when it comes to decentralization, helping more people who are not institutions participate in something, we are seeing an energy transition where more people than ever before will have the opportunity to participate and profit into something pretty remarkable that is happening in the United States and around all over the world.
No, this is huge, and anybody listening right now is really, really, really getting some good information given to them pretty much for free. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands that, hold on, this is not financial or legal advice. Alex and I are both not lawyers. I know this show, normally we have a ton of lawyers on, but we are both not lawyers. Again, I'll probably put this at the end too. I might put it at the beginning as well. This isn't financial or legal advice. But Alex,
in our position, Jacob, too, we're usually lucky because a lot of the times we're just saying we're the ones explaining it.
Yeah,
we're saying, hey, this is from our experience, from the projects we've done. This is how we understand it, right? But there's an accountant or a lawyer that represents you that you want to check this out, and we're usually explaining it to them and then letting them make informed decisions. But yeah, if I could give a general piece of advice to anybody is. And actually, I could send this to you, Jacob. There's a federal guide to tax credits. It's not updated from the new bill yet, but just having the baseline understanding that there are tax credits for renewables, and there are loads of depreciation. So if someone were to invest into $1 million system for a business, a minimum of $520,000 of tax credits come along with that system. If you add the adders, right? Let's say a factory buys $1 million energy system in general, $520,000 of a minimum that comes in tax credits. You can get adders of 20% more. And in many states, there's rebate programs. In the state of Illinois, these systems are 80 to 90% subsidized. And there are areas, whether it's a company like mine or whether there's school districts in your community or churches even, or nonprofits, right? There are plenty of different avenues with which to like put in tax equity into these and literally make a return on money that you would have thrown away. I guess that's kind of the main point. This is an opportunity to invest money that you would have sent sailing away to Washington, D.C., as for better or for worse.
No, it is great advice. I mean, and with all of this as well, if you are seriously considering anything that we were talking about, if it's something that you really, really think that you want to be a part of, you can always reach out to a tax professional as well. That always, It's not going to help. It's not going to hurt you. Nothing bad is going to happen, but it does help. Now, I know a little bit before you mentioned we're not going to probably see a lot of federal tax credits, more bills with this. What does the future kind of look like? Is this going to be like a good chunk of tax credits and then like 10 more years from now on there's going to be more, or are we going to gradually kind of like California start seeing a few more here and there?
It's kind of like, it's from the federal government's perspective, it's kind of like they've like lobbed a rocket of what they hope is impact fuel, and now for the next 10 years they're kind of going to do like one of these and see what happens. I would guess that my prediction would be that this gets really, the conversation intensifies at a federal level 8 years from now, when we started to assess what we've actually been able to accomplish. Because of this, we'll have really good public data around it for which our leaders to like make decisions around. I would say though, yes, you can expect to see more state rebate and state renewable and efficiency programs begin to roll out. Generally, New England, like the whole of the Eastern Seaboard, California, Illinois, those are already states that have really, really strong state programs within them already. Some Colorado utilities have ones, and there's a few more kind of spattered throughout there. But I would expect in states that maybe have not been as have had such an amiable attitude towards renewables, I would predict that you would start seeing some of those states start to create rebate programs, because they're going to begin to have the data from the initial states that have already rolled out really successful programs that have created I'm trying to speak clean here, a crap ton of jobs, have created a lot of economic impact, a lot of savings for business owners, and have helped like new industries to bud. There are dozens of $10 to $50 million solar companies all over the state of Illinois now because of these programs. And I personally know dozens of individuals whose lives have been completely changed by the bolstering of this industry and have been able to build real wealth and real freedom for themselves, doing something that ultimately delivers a lot of value to people in the world. So I would say, yeah, we can expect those state programs to start popping up. And there was money, a few billion set aside in the Inflation Reduction Act to bolster these state programs. Jacob, let's dive into some of these crypto questions you have, man. Those are pretty important for me.
Sure. Anything else you want to add about the Inflation Reduction Act, or think covered everything?
I guess the last thing I would add about the Inflation Reduction Act is that we, regardless of what side of the political, cultural, or ideological like fence that you may sit on, when we zoom in to the climate portion of this bill, this is something that I believe all Americans should be able to look at and be proud of. Because what happened 100 years ago, and I'm being loose here, but what happened when we decided that we're going to transition into a nation that heavily focuses on oil, so much so that we're going to back part of our dollar with the commodity, is that we saw a new piece of technology. We saw a new way to make power, and we understood that it could fundamentally change the world. And then, so what our government did is they took a step to make sure that we, for better or for worse, because there's a lot of blood spilled for this, but for better or for worse, our government made sure that we were going to be the #1 implementers of this new energy technology. And because of that, our country saw immense wealth, progress, and security and military innovation because of it. We saw immense innovation. This Inflation Reduction Act is not as monumental, but it is at least on the climate standpoint, something that I believe all Americans should be inherently like proud of and excited for, because it is finally our government realizing that this technology has legs. It drives economic value to people, and does something that begins to position us as an overall community of Americans to be able to benefit from this stuff, because it's happening no matter what. And we would rather it happen on our shores and in our businesses and led by our leaders, because it is the American people at the end of the day who end up benefiting from the watershed that happens from that.
I couldn't agree more. And you keep saying wealth, individuality, new technology, and with my crypto audience watching, if that doesn't sound super similar to crypto, then I don't know what else does. But yeah, this is all very important. And again, super new. If you want to dive into it, again, ask us questions on here as well. I think I do actually have a few comments. This is a good question. So before we move on to crypto and energy, I do have one right here. So this user asks, does that alternative energy tax credit only apply to individuals, or does it apply to small businesses as well?
All right. So the answer there is both. It applies to any entity, individual or entity that is purchasing equipment. So you can think about this like you would think about commercial real estate. Okay. Let's say you own a factory. Okay. You're a small business that is a factory. While likely your building is in a different LLC than the actual business that makes whatever the goods are that you're making, right? And you do that as a hedge for taxes, and to separate liability. Solar systems or energy systems in general are systems that create an economic result. They create revenue via the energy that they make, okay? And so in the same way, let's take a school, for example. Because a school only signs up to purchase energy from a solar system, they do not buy it, right? They just buy the energy from it. Someone else is buying it. And in a lot of cases, that is usually a bit of scratch on, just from our point of view, it's a bit of scratch on our end in private investment dollars that we raise from either private individuals or institutions themselves. What we do then with that money is that that money essentially is getting deposited into a new LLC's bank account. That LLC purchases that equipment. Those credits and those revenues are then awarded to the owners of that new LLC, and then they flow through to the individuals. We do this from our clients on day in and day out. Is sometimes their small business may very well, we have a lot of this. Their small business already has a lot of depreciation and doesn't pay much in taxes. This is especially true for manufacturers, construction companies, and people who are in different financial services. Good on you for some of that smart stuff. Some of these businesses are already taking advantage of a lot of different incentives or sound loopholes that are there, and they have a very low tax liability. So they may look at a solar system for their business and go, well, I can't monetize these tax credits either. I got $1 million system with $500,000 of tax credits. Well, I only paid 20 grand in taxes a year. That doesn't really mean anything to me. Well, maybe the individual who owns that factory is making $1.5 million a year. Or even more direct to your audience, Jacob, is maybe that owner of that factory makes a few $100 grand a year, $500 grand a year from the factory, just made $500 grand this last year on crypto, right? And has cashed some out and has maybe sold a property right now. This year they have $300-400 grand of taxes to pay. Well, what can happen is that owner of that factory can create a new LLC that is fully owned by them. Okay. That LLC will purchase that solar system. All of those tax credits will flow to the individual, and then their factory will pay that individual for the energy that comes off of it. Right. So a long-winded answer, but yes, the alternative energy tax credit can apply to either individuals or businesses, whether they are individual only, business only, or put in a symposium fashion, right, where there's like a collaborative group purchasing these systems.
All right, so whoever asked that question, you got quite the answer, but I hope that does encourage everybody else who is watching. If you have a question, please comment. And then also, if you're watching this later on and you see it, you can still leave a question and we can get back to it as soon as we can as well. So let's kind of dive a little bit into my crypto and clean energy. So crypto and clean energy, huge topic that people kind of either snark at or they're kind of like, don't know too much about. I'll start off with a whole bunch of my questions here, but why does crypto require so much energy?
Well, let's talk about what crypto requires so much energy. So the cryptocurrencies currently that require a lot of energy are blockchains that are working off of a proof of work model, right? In which the entire network, all of the different modes and all the different pieces and encryption in the network constantly verify everything, right? Everything that happens is constantly verified by everything that is everywhere, right? Well, that's an entire network of processors running, right? Ultimately, when we're talking about cryptocurrency, the thing that is controlling it are these massive banks all over the world of just straight up processors that are doing nothing but churning energy and running encryption, right? The advantage there is that, you know, like Bitcoin, the mother of all blockchains, Bitcoin is a proof of work protocol, and it takes a shitload of energy. But the benefit there is it's fully decentralized, right? And so any Bitcoin, any cryptocurrency that's running off of a proof of work model is inherently going to have the benefit of being fully decentralized and transparent, but also taking up a lot of energy, right? And so, right, it's just the baseline way, the baseline functionality of how the tech works just straight up eats up a bunch of energy because of this process of full network verification. I hope that was, I would guess a lot of your audience kind of understands. Maybe I hope your clients already understand that piece. Two is then the proof of stake model, right? And I think I may be preaching to the choir here, but right, the proof of stake model requires far less and more randomized verification throughout the network, right? This is where this idea of smart contracts is coming. This is where Ethereum is moving to. Proof of stake takes a factor of 100 times less energy to do the work that it needs, straight up, just because, again, the functionality of the network is different. But with that lack of full decentralization comes a few cons, whether that's security, whether that's a lack of full decentralization, so on and so forth. But I would guess we are going to see, as likely as much as possible, more and more blockchains going to that model. Although I doubt Bitcoin would ever do that. I don't know though. I don't know. Anyway, that's the difference. Proof of work, proof of stake. Okay, proof of stake takes infinitely less energy to make.
No, that was a great answer, and you don't have to know everything, about Bitcoin. We stream live, so we're on our LinkedIn page, we're on our YouTube page as well, and we're also in the Facebook group Ethereum. So everyone watching, definitely on the Facebook group, they're all gonna be pro Ethereum.
They're like, this is elementary school nonsense. Yeah, for them.
Hopefully not. Hopefully they're having a good time. So, which leads me to my next question, and I think you answered it a little bit. What are the issues that are arising with so much energy consumption with crypto?
Yeah, okay, so I was going to start talking about some of the different ways they can make better power to run the crypto, but let me actually answer your question. What are some of the issues that are arising? Let's talk about Texas. So Texas is a state that is experiencing, as we all know, immense population growth for a number of cultural and economic and growth factors, right? The other thing that's happening while all of this population growth is happening in Texas, with population growth comes more energy demand. As that same thing is happening, the state of Texas is actually one of the largest implementers of renewable power in the US. In 2019, the state of Texas installed more renewable power than any other state in the United States. However, even though that's happening, they're shutting down coal plants. Over the last 3 or 4 years, 3 coal plants have been shut down, and within the next year, there's a couple more scheduled to come offline. The benefit of a coal plant is that you can throw that dirty stuff in there as much as you want and produce as much power as you want, even if you are like throwing soot everywhere and causing cancer rates generationally and regionally down the road. You can make a lot of power, right? But the issue that's coming and happening in Texas is that as they're taking these plants offline, the renewable power plants and the storage assets are not coming online quick enough. And so what's happening is you're having brownouts all across the state of Texas. A few of them have happened just over the last couple of weeks. Like literally people who need, or like food, we'll go to people in a second, like food operations in Texas are ending up without power and sometimes not being able to have the generation they need and losing food. Now, to get to where it involves cryptocurrency, the state of Texas and Governor Greg Abbott have really worked hard for many good reasons to try to create a very friendly environment for cryptocurrency mining companies to come in. A lot of cryptocurrency mining companies were wanting to move into China because China had barely any regulation on what kind of energy can come from it. And it was newer in the space, right? A lot of outfits now are trying to get back onto US soil because they know, hey, even though there's going to be regulatory happenings around crypto, we at least know that like the government probably won't come seize our assets. I can assure you guys the government's not going to come seize any like crypto mining stations. But what's happening there is, so if you have all of this already happening in a state like Texas, but then you have all of these mines coming online, these mining operations coming online at the same time, it is a shit show of energy supply and demand happening in Texas right now. Like that is the state to watch. Of, you want to know where issues are coming from within the energy consumption of crypto and data centers, but it's crypto and data centers. Right now, Texas is seeing massive issues from it because in a hot summer day when everyone's AC kicks on and the crypto needs to be mined and the data to like run our lives in Google, like all needs to be processed, it creates immense strain on the grid, one, which leads to power outages. But what it also does is it drastically spikes energy rates. There's places in Texas that are paying nearly double what we pay for energy here in Illinois, and they're an oil state. Like, that's crazy.
Again, if anybody has any questions, this is not financial or legal advice. Again, getting into a little bit, this disclaimer again.
I was
If you're
like,
from,
wow, what is there to buy in Texas? Like, there's
if
a lot.
anybody actually is from Texas, experience a brownout, comment below. Currently while we're live or later on, we'll get back to you, kind of getting a little bit more, contact kind of with the viewers here. But we have all these problems. Texas is this big problem state, all this data, all this crypto. What are some solutions?
So there are a few solutions. So one of the solutions, solution number one is energy storage. The need for energy storage right now in the ERCOT, and that is the Energy Reliability Council of Texas. The Energy Reliability Council of Texas, ERCOT, is really unique in that it is a nonprofit entity with government oversight that runs the grid. And so with that, the grid is serviced by independent power producers and independent storers, people who store power. And so where that leaves solutions is really for independent power producers in Texas to create power in a better, more sustainable way. Well, the linchpin of that is energy storage. All of the renewable tech that outside of hydrogen produces energy in an immensely dense way. Solar and wind, I'll get to nuclear in a second. Solar and wind produce energy in a way that is linear. And so if there is a spike in demand, you can't just have more sun. You need that energy on hand, ready to deploy somewhere. So one of the projects that we're currently funding and working on deploying are energy storage facilities in the ERCOT grid in the state of Texas. So these are shipping container size, 10 megawatt. 10 megawatts is enough to run like a few hundred homes for a month. They have 10 megawatts of energy, and what our assets get paid to do. This is crazy. We're not just charging low and selling high. These assets are literally getting paid to store power just in case, right? For ERCOT to have a certain amount of stored power at any given time, should there be demand with which they need to pull from. Okay. So, developers like Tesla, Siemens, and luckily enough for us to get into the mix of doing this, are working to raise funding and deploy energy assets that get 85% of their revenue from what is called the response reserve system in ERCOT. So the solution is ERCOT and other power companies will start paying to do this, is they will pay you a baseline of revenue to store energy for them just in case they need it. And then the other 15% of revenue comes from arbitrage, right? Which is filling the battery up low and selling it high, right? So solution number one, I tell you, Jacob, is in energy storage. That's why energy storage was such a major part of this bill. Again, this is not financial advice, but energy storage companies are going to do very, very well in the next little while. If these tax incentives are actually taken advantage of, which they will be. The other solution, this is a hot take from me. I do not have like a doctorate in this stuff. The next solution is modular energy reactors, modular nuclear energy reactors specifically. Within the last month, the U.S. Department of Energy has authorized essentially the permitting, use, and build out of what are the first modular nuclear reactors that will be being installed across the United States. This is massive. No one's really talking about it, but going modular and small with nuclear is, in my mind, being in it every day and thinking about energy and reading what's happening and helping business owners and investors do something about it every day. Nuclear is the future. We're not in it yet, but it is the future. And what I believe is the ultimate solution to our renewability, energy security, having cheap power on hand, is we need to get serious about implementing safe, small scale, modular nuclear. And the reason I keep saying modular, Jacob, is nuclear has a lot of stuff around it. And the reason why they are so unsafe is we we retrofit the earth. We move and shape the earth now to make a nuclear reactor, i.e. a nuclear reactor is made into the earth. So if you have a earthquake and you're off the coast of Japan, you could have a big meltdown, right? If you have any other disturbance within the crust anywhere, right? Or an overheat or whatever, that reactor is built into the earth. And it takes 10 years in order to do that, right? The state of Illinois is powered 50% by nuclear energy, but all of those plants were made decades and decades ago, and they took 10 to 15 years or more to actually build. The new modular reactors are based off of the same design that runs our naval ships. Our naval ships don't need fuel, man. They just run in perpetuity. As long as you have some helicopters or planes to come drop off like food and supplies and bullets for the people that are on the plane or on the boat itself, they don't need to be refueled at any point. And so they took that same idea of the multi-reactors that we put on our warships and on our flight tankers, and they took that design into what is like the size of a school bus, and the entire reactor is fully encapsulated within like a lead steel chamber and has all of its safety mechanisms built within. That is going to, probably not in the next 10 years, but I would say in the next 20 to 30, 35 years, that is going to completely change the outlook of how we create and use energy in the United States. That's the solution.
No, these are some great answers. Some of these questions, it was just me and I was just curious. I was like, okay, I kind of want to know what this is about. So I'm actually having a great time because I'm learning quite a bit. But
yeah. Batteries
kind of,
for now, nuclear in the future is our solution. My opinion.
Again, not financial or legal advice. Got to throw that disclaimer up there. Kind of to wrap things all up here.
Yeah.
We have those solutions. Could we possibly see crypto going all green?
No, we won't see crypto go all green. And you know, yeah, if there's even a small audience, if I could encourage anyone to do anything, is that when we're talking about energy, let's just delete the word green. It's useless. And doesn't really capture any of the goals that we actually need to be striving for. What I would like to see within the crypto mining industry, and I think what we will continue to see in the crypto mining industry, is a push towards sustainable power, which is using a multitude and array of sources that produces power in a way that fits the needs of the actual mining operation itself, but also has a lower carbon footprint impact. There's plenty of examples of this, like in Iceland. In Iceland, there's massive crypto farms that are being run completely off of hydropower, right? That is a sustainable long-term solution that is energy dense, is clean, and will work for a long time. But no, at no point is the crypto industry or is all of America gonna go green. That's a nonsense term, right? What we should be caring about is sustainable. And this is directly from one of the partners we work with at Guarantee Clean Energy, is we should be working and looking towards solutions that equally impact people, our planet, and create profit. That is really what sustainable is where those three factors collide. We should be seeing that. And that is kind of as people who, whether you believe in climate change or think climate change is caused from people or not, like, sustainable energy is the future. Sustainable energy will be a massive profit center. And the reality is this, is energy, well, in America, for many messed up reasons, pharmaceuticals are like the largest industry. But in any other part of the world, and the truth is, energy is the foundational largest industry and has the most impact on our world. And we are sitting at the footstep of the largest transition around energy that we've seen in the last 100 years. And this one is going to be like the most diverse, the most exciting, the one that the most people get to participate in, because we are going to watch a sustainable, decentralized revolution of energy happen in our lifetimes. And we have so many opportunities to participate in it. Last thing I'll say about cryptocurrencies and green. Right now, there are very few or any cryptocurrencies that are directly tied to physical energy assets. So for those who are investing, again, not my financial advice, but what I know from the different people that we've met and different coins that we've explored and blockchain technology that we've explored. Look, we work in funding. Like we can sell a factory like a kick-ass energy solution, but we really focus on the funding end of it. And we are doing plenty of research on how we can use blockchain to better create efficiencies in the funding of new power plants, new decentralized energy power plants. But they're not there yet. That's the most important thing I can say to people. There's like green coins out there. There's these like solar coins that are like whatever. If it is not directly tied to an energy credit, or it is not directly tied to a loan on an asset, or it is not directly tied to the revenue of an asset, it's speculative and it's greenwashing. It's saying green for the sake of it, but it's not helping it's not helping the planet. It's not helping people. And it certainly isn't driving profit. If you're wanting to like help support companies that are doing something around sustainability, I would say Cardano is a really good like front runner of like smart contract, people who are doing smart contract, proof of stake technology, so on and so forth. But please do not support blockchain companies, crypto companies, or DeFi companies, or anything of the sort that is not going to be tying their assets into some stream of revenue that is like real and connected to either credits or project, because otherwise it is speculative. And the group of people that we work with, hey, we're not there yet, but when we're thinking about cryptocurrency and we're working on cryptocurrency projects, that is everything we are focused on, is how can we use blockchain to directly serve and create more efficiencies and opportunity in funding decentralized power plants. We're not there yet, but I will be ringing your guys' door when we figured it out. And it's not just us, there's plenty of people other companies that we're working with and collaborating with to do it.
No, that's great. And I think for everybody out there listening, do your research too. So if you want to find any type of tokens that promote sustainable energy, do your research. Make sure, again, I really like that term greenwashing. I think that's pretty good. But wrapping things up here, it actually almost has been about an hour. If anybody wants to reach out to Alex, we'll throw his website up there, ehbedenergy.com.
And the best easiest way is by email. My email is alex@Ehbed Energy.
Yeah, if you guys more questions, or if you just want to reach out, have a good conversation, I suppose.
Yep. If you pay more than $150,000 of taxes, either as a business or as an individual in any year, we have a portfolio of millions of dollars of all different projects of different sizes, where you can directly put money that you would have paid in taxes into energy assets that are being paid for, that are collecting energy rent from like municipalities and schools. So that is my only call to action, outside of just the straight value that we're trying to give here to you guys. My call to action would be, if you're going to pay more than $150,000 in taxes in any given year, and you did last year, send me an email.
And as always, for Gordon Law Group, you can reach us at GordonLawLtd.com. Again, everybody, wrapping things up here, I want to thank everybody for watching. If you have any more questions, any other type of comments, leave them on these posts. I'll go through them, get back to them as quickly as I can. Alex, I want to thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. I think this has probably been one of my favorite ones that I've done so far. So
dang, really that means a lot. Thank you.
And probably be reaching out pretty soon to get you on a few more here, hopefully.
Yeah, reach out again. I'd be happy to stop by your guys. I'm at like Ontario and Franklin here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely will. So everybody, next week, same time, Thursday, 11 a.m. Central Time. See you in the next one, you guys.